Welcome back to another video. This really popped when I saw it. That to me is a monster increase. Again, this book got hot. This book is ready to go higher.
So let's jump right into it.
We are back today with another statue review from Diamond Select Toys. Without further ado, let's get into the review. Boom! What is going on YouTube? This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles. I want to thank you guys out there for joining me for another video here on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about comics that I think are still dropping in value. So we're going to go through some of those here today on the channel. But before we get started in the video, like always, I want to remind you guys, if you're not a current sub of the channel, you guys are definitely missing out. I'm giving a copy away of Amazing Spider-Man number 16. Once we get to 7,000 subs, of course, I'm also giving it away a piece of original art print of Amazing Fantasy 15. The cover is absolutely remarkable to one lucky sub and one lucky member. With that said, make sure you sub to the channel, smash the like button for me because it really helps the channel out, and of course if you're interested in merch, I always got you covered. With that said, I want you to check out some of these books that I think are still falling, and now may not be the time to be picking them up. So you know, if we're going to start off this list, we have to start it with this book. It is a copy of Uncanny XMen number 130, the first appearance of Dazzler. Now, you know, if you watch my Hot 10 breakdown of the weeks, this book has been all over the list for the past 3 or 4 months, and we know why. Rumors out there are saying that Taylor Swift is going to be playing Dazzler in Deadpool 3, and that very well may be so, but I'm going to tell you guys this. Why do we buy comics as collectors? Not because of speculation or not because we think someone's going to be in a movie. If you're buying because of those reasons, 9 times out of 10 you are going to lose money, so keep that in the back of your head. Regarding this book, yes, it has been going up for 3 or 4 months, but now I'm starting to think people are realizing, hey, what if she doesn't show up, or even if she does show up, is it going to be a long-term role? Probably not, right? So I think people are going to start dumping this book, and as you can see by the GPA, I took a 9.0 grade. The 90-day average is all the way up at $282, but the last sale was just this month for only $200. That is a pretty steep decline. Now, I'm not saying if you're not a Dazzler fan or even an X-Men fan that you shouldn't be buying this book. All these videos I talk about books and prices are because I think that we should be buying at the right prices, or maybe buying specific grades because they're undervalued. So keep that in the back of your mind. But to me, this one is destined to come crashing down. We'll see how long it takes after that movie comes out. Next up, we're going to be talking about X-Men number 94, the first appearance of the new X-Men team in the X-Men title. If you don't know, the first appearance of the new team altogether was in Giant Size X-Men 1, but we'll get into that book a little bit later. So to me, I went through all the grades on GPA, and I chose this one in an 8.5, because if you look at the 90-day average, the sale is all the way up at $1,168, but the last sale was only about $1,000. Now, if you go through some of the grades, some of the books, the last sales are going up, some of them are going down, and that's true for all the books on this list. So we're not just talking about GPA specifically, we're talking about the book in general. Now, if you are not on Instagram, you're missing out, because some of these books are going for well under GPA last sale, so keep that in your mind. But to me, I know the X-Men is really hot right now with them coming to the MCU sooner rather than later, but a lot of these Bronze Age keys, because there are so many copies out there, people are undercutting themselves in price in order to sell these books, and that's why I think a lot of them are still have a date with Destiny in coming down in price, this one notwithstanding. We're going to be sticking with X-Men for a little bit, and we're going to talk about the Uncanny X-Men number 266 and the first appearance of Gambit. This one is a Copper Age book and one of my faves, and I do think everybody who is an X-Men fan ought to own this book. So let's not be mistaken when I say these books are still going down. Yes, they still should be owned for the right price. Now here I took a 9.8 because I know there are a lot of copies out there of this book, and even with some of the covers being really bright, really colorful, colors are great, and there are some copies where the colors are not so great. So I want you to remember that if you're looking to buy this book. But this book in a 9.8, the last sale was $550 this month. But look at the 90-day average for this one, $653 on a whopping 39 sales. That is a lot of sales in the 90-day period for a 9.8. With that said, heed my advice with colors when it comes to this book. You're going to have a lot of up and down with this book. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't go out and own it, but I do still think this book has further to go because people are still undercutting themselves when selling this book. But hey, if you have a 9.8 and the colors are spot on, you have a golden ticket when buying this book, so you may want to hang on to it. All right, so I told you we get back to this book. It is a copy of Giant Size X-Men #1, the first full appearance of the new X-Men team overall. And don't mind the picture. I know this is the reprint copy up there, but either way, the original issue, you guys know what it looks like. It's exactly the same, except it's not $4.99. So keep that in the back of your mind in case you're looking to buy one. Regardless, I looked at this book on GPA in all the grades, and I took this example because it is a 7.0, where way back in 2022, this book was going for $3,905, and where it is now in the last sale, $2,280. But take a look at that 90-day average, guys. 3 months ago, we had sales averaging around $2,704. $500 difference in the past 3 months. This book will fluctuate depending on how it looks, up, down, but I do think that this book still has further to go. Just like the X-Men 266 that we just talked about a little while ago, this book, it matters what the colors look like on the book. Whenever I'm looking at Giant Size X-Men 1, that's the first thing that I notice. The whites of the book and the colors of the characters and the big X-Men logo. How does it look? That's what you should be focusing on, and I still think this book has more to go, unfortunately. Around a $2,000 mark for a 7.0 I think is a really good deal, so if it gets to that point, you might want to pounce. Until then, there are enough copies out there. We can kind of hold off and see what happens. But again, that's up to you. I'm not advocating that you go out and buy any of these books. I'm just saying do your due diligence and check out the last sales, but also check out where they've been over the past couple of months. So I know I'm going to get a little flack for having this book on this list, but I do think that this one still has room to drop. And of course, it is a copy of Incredible Hulk number 181 and the first full appearance of Wolverine. Now, we all know Hugh Jackman is coming back to the MCU in Deadpool 3, and we're also, I think, going to get 2 other Wolverines in this movie, so hopefully they're good cameos. Regardless, guys, I think a lot of Bronze Age keys are not done yet. The reason why, there's a lot of copies out there and people are still undercutting one another. I was on a live sale the other night where one of the sellers had at least 7 or 8 copies of Incredible Hulk 181, some raw, some slab, and people were still trying to get deals. People were checking out the 90-day average, people were checking out the last sale, and they're trying to be under that because they know that there are a lot of copies out there of this book. So I took a 6.5. It really doesn't illustrate what's going on, but hey, let's take a look at it. The 2022 average all the way up at $5,265, and the last sale down at $3,650. But let's also check out the 90-day. The 90-day was $3,654, right in line with that. The one thing I do know, bottoming is a process, and you're going to get some sales below the last sale, above the last sale, so on and so forth. I'm going to give you the same piece of advice I just told you before. Concentrate on the book, what it looks like, the colors, the presentation, what's wrong with it. Make sure it's complete, everything out there, especially when it comes to bronze, guys. So many copies exist. You want to own the best possible copy. With that said, now may not be the right time to buy. Let's hold off. Let's maybe wait till after Deadpool 3 when the hype dies down, and we'll see if this book has really bottomed or not. Let's flip over and talk about Spider-Man, another incredibly popular character, and let's talk about this book right here. It is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 210 and the first appearance of Madam Web. Now, I called it in the beginning. I knew Sony was going to ruin this character and this movie, and that's exactly what happened. And I told everyone, don't be buying this book for high grade because it's going to get demolished after that movie comes out, and now that's starting to happen. Case in point, let's look at a CGC 9.2. According to GPA, in 2022, guys, the average is $232. Let's check out the 90-day next, down to $163 while this book was still going up. Look at the last sale, guys, all the way down to $96 this month. Now, this doesn't tell the whole story, okay? This movie is so bad, it's going to drive a 9.0 and a 9.2 further downward. I'm talking anywhere between $50 to $75 in my opinion. Told you guys I picked up my copy, which is probably a mid-grade, my run filler for around $40, $45, and that's really where you want to be. There's no reason to own a high-grade copy of this book, especially on a character where I knew they were going to ruin it because their Sony put out an incredibly horrible movie. I hate to say it, I just told you guys this. If you own this book now, I think you're stuck with it and you're never getting your money back. Let's stick with Spidey here and talk about one of my favorite characters. Of course, it is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 194 and the first appearance of the Black Cat, Felicia Hardy. There's also one of my favorite covers from the Bronze Age with the all black and the spotlight cover on Spider-Man. Absolutely love this one, but unfortunately, I think it still has room to drop. Now, let's take a look at GPA, and I took a 9.2. We're going to check out 2022. The average is all the way up at $790 on 43 sales. Let's check out the 90-day next, $396, almost a 50% decline. But check out how many sold in 90 days. Only 6 compared to all of 2022 to 43. To me, that is a big drop because if you extrapolate it, it's only 24 copies throughout the year. So this book is less in demand than it was back in 2022. Let's take a look at the last sale now, all the way down at $310 and still dropping. We're getting into that 70% category from the highs, which to me is a big to-do. If this book in a 9.2 gets around to $250, then it becomes a steal. But right now, I still think, unfortunately, it has room to drop. But hey, if you could find this book for a steal, I'm a big fan of Amazing Spider-Man keys. Part of my laugh, but I can't help but laugh at this one. So here we have a copy of Ultimate Fallout 4, the Djurjevic variant. Now this book at one point was insane. The price of this book was crazy for a modern book. And 9.8 was approaching $50,000 at one point. I didn't decide to go ahead and take a look at 9.8 because the last sell on a 9.8 doesn't tell the true story because it was actually up over the 90-day average. But let's take a look at a 9.6, okay? In 2022, the average for this one was $9,661. The 90-day average now, $4,150. But check out that last sale of $3,800. If you're going to look to buy this book right now, you better check every grade point average and GPA, Comic Link, eBay, wherever you can to see with the lowest possible price point that you could get in. For me, I'm not a modern buyer, and to me, I was never looking for this book regardless. I thought it was way inflated when this book was at its height. So where is it going to bottom? I don't think anybody knows. People are still, I think, afraid to buy this book. Just like the regular Miles Morales Ultimate Fallout 4, the standard edition, people are still, that book is still coming down. At one point, I thought it had bottomed around $1,500. Now it's, I think, around $1,200 to $1,100. So that book is still going down as well. So where is this one going to stop? I'm not too sure, but I think for $4,000, I'd probably want to take that money and put it towards a better key, maybe even a Silver Age key at this point, not a modern variant. Up next, let's talk about one of my favorite books of all time, and unfortunately, I know a lot of people are going to be yelling at me about this book as well, but here we have a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 300 and the first full appearance of Venom. Now, I know you want to yell at me saying $2.99 is his first appearance. Regardless, that doesn't bother me, but I'm telling you, this book is still coming down, and I'm going to take it at a 9.8. Now, I know it's inexpensive for a lot of people out there, but if you go a couple of years back, this book at one point was almost selling for $9,000, a direct edition, way back when, for a 9.8, but in 2022 the average is $4,863. The 90-day average $3,203. But look at that last sale of $3,500. Now this is where we can't go ahead and trust GPA on this. I'm sure the sale was valid, but if you go on IG and you're a frequent IG buyer or comic collector, you see this book consistently listed for under $3,000. So yes, this book is definitely still coming down. Now why is that the case? I told you guys this before, that reholder scam with this multiple 9.8s of this book, unfortunately, it's going to be driving prices down on ASM 300 going forward. Also true with ASM 194, the book we just talked about. A lot of those copies out there were on that reholder list, going to be driving that book further down as well. Unfortunately, a lot of copper was affected by that reholder scam. Unfortunately, all these copper age books in 9.8s are going to suffer from what had happened over at CGC. So I want to keep that in the back of your head. If you're looking for copper age 9.8s or any type of high grade copper right now that may have appeared on that list, unfortunately, I do think we're heading for a downfall for some of these keys. Now, I'm not saying how far they're going to go down because I really don't have any clue. This book is very popular and people are going to want to go ahead and snatch those deals up, and good for you because that's exactly what I think you should do. But right now, I kind of be waiting and see where the lowest possible price I can get for a 9.8 beautiful looking copy of this book before I go ahead and jump into it. All right, so I wanted to touch on this book a little bit. Unfortunately, here we have a copy of Strange Tales number 110. We all know what this book is. It is the first appearance of Doctor Strange, a major hero and someone that is still in the MCU, I might add. But we all know what this book suffers from. It is that cover. We don't see Doctor Strange on that cover. It is a very block cover. Yes, with the Human Torches on it, which is great, but we really want Doctor Strange on our cover. We want that first appearance of that character to be on that cover, and this book has always suffered from it. But in the comic boom, this book really went up in price, so I thought maybe it had a chance. But in 2022, and I took a 2.5 grade, the average was $2,246. But go check out the last sale of this book, all the way down at $1,140. $40. Now, I thought this book, like I said, had a chance way back when to keep going because it was a major character, major Silver Age first appearance, but I do think whoever's going to spend the type of money of over $1,000 to buy a bigger key, they want to put that towards a book where you can actually see the first appearance of that character on the cover. And this book has always suffered from that. But hey, if you can get past that, this book is a steal in any grade. But for me, I still think it has room to go down because nobody wants to own this book right now. And the last book we're going to talk about is this one, unfortunately, and I have to say, I think this book is definitely done. It is a copy of Avengers number 8 and the first appearance of Kang the Conqueror. Now, I don't know if you guys heard this, but Avengers 5 is no longer going to be called Avengers Kang Dynasty. It is going to be renamed to something else, and from what I've heard, they're going to minimize Kang's involvement going forward in future Avengers movies. So, unfortunately, I think he's going to get written out, maybe taken out quick by another bigger villain. Not too sure how it's going to play out, but either way, I think that's bad for prices on this book. And I took a 4.0 because in 2022, the average for that book was $983, and the 90-day, as it stands right now, is only $400. The last sale, $392, 50% haircut. But with the news that he's no longer going to be involved, or at least minimized, this book, I think, still has a lot more room to go down. Now, if you're a major Kang fan and you just want to own the book, I would say hang on, wait it out, see what's going to actually happen going forward, and then pounce on it. But either way, if you're not a purist of Avengers books, you probably want to stay away from this one altogether. All right, that's it for this one, guys. Just a few books, I think 11 on this list that I think are still coming down in price. And there are probably a lot more out there that haven't hit their bottom as of yet. But use caution. The whole thing to take away from this video is that you're buying the book. You're not buying the price. So keep that in mind. If prices are what you're concerned with, you probably don't want to buy much right here, right now. But a lot of bronze, a lot of copper still can be affected by what's going on. Silver Age books, for the most part, I think are pretty safe to buy right now because they've been kind of oversold, in my opinion, for the most part. But do your due diligence, buy the best possible copy, see what they look like, compare it to other books that you think present better, and see if you really want to own that book. To me, presentation is everything right now, as long as you're buying complete copies of books, as long as you're buying unrestored copies of books, stuff like that. And we're talking about mostly about bronze, about copper, modern books. Get the best possible grade you could own for the best price. One other note I'll add is people are still undercutting each other for these books because of the amount of copies out there. So I also want you to think about that. Like always, guys, this is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles saying thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.